Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, and Organ Donation India Foundation. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic, and today's topic is not only current, very hot, very burning. The topic is oil crisis. Crude oil and oil is a naturally occurring yellowish black liquid found in geological formations beneath the Earth's surface. It is commonly refined to various types of fuels, components of petroleum. Components of petroleum are separated using a technique called fractional distillation, that is, separation of a liquid mixture into fractions differing in boiling point by means of distillation, typically using a fractioning column.
Hello.
Please keep yourself on mute, please. It's already live telecast going on. It consists of naturally occurring hydrocarbons of various molecule weights and may contain miscellaneous organic compounds. Oil crisis is defined as an increase in oil prices large enough to cause a worldwide recession or a significant reduction in global real gross domestic product GDP below projected rates by 2 to 3 percentage points. The 1973 and 1979 oil episodes both qualify as oil crisis by this definition. The 1973 oil crisis caused a decline in GDP of 4.7% in the US, 2.5% in Europe, and 7% in Japan, while the 1979 crisis caused world GDP to drop by 3%. An oil crisis could be precipitated by a rapid expansion in the global economy, fueling greater consumption of oil, or by a lack of spare production capacity causing demand to outstrip supply, or a combination of both. It could also be caused by a sudden disruption in oil supplies triggered by political events or acts of sabotage against oil installations in major oil producing countries, or even by a deliberate political decision by a major producer or a group of producers to cut supplies. This looming world oil crisis 2022 is caused by the Western nations' attempt to implement an international embargo against Russian oil and energy products because of its invasion of Ukraine. Russia is the third largest oil producer in the world, and if this conflict continues, global economy suffers. Another cause is the low production by OPEC and the shutting down of Libyan oil fields by armed men. Now, to discuss this very, very important and relevant topic of oil crisis, we have a very elite, knowledgeable, those who are expert in the field, panelists are with us. I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and he is Professor Dr. R.K. Arya. Professor Dr. R.K. Arya is the Professor of International Economics at Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies, Faridabad. He is triple post-graduation in statistics, econometrics, finance, double PhD in finance and economics from Delhi University. He worked in applied economics and social welfare, Government of India. He contributed hundreds of articles in leading economic newspapers. He is guiding PhD scholars on various applied topics. He possesses thorough knowledge of social welfare, development, public policies, education, and employment. He attended many conferences, workshops, and presented papers. Presently, he is teaching MBA students. He has good understanding of international economics. He is having practical experience in education planning in Planning Commission. Welcome, Dr. R.K. Arya, on our show. Professor Arya, you have heard the report which I read, and it clearly shows whenever there is a a disruption in the oil field, it affect a major crisis in the world and especially in the GDP. Although the present situation is that today the crude oil prices has come down, although it has touched about $140 per barrel, and today the rate has come down to $110 a barrel. But whether this will continue or not, whether we can term this particular crisis as an oil crisis or not, what will be the impact on Indian economy, how the India is playing, whether the Indian policies of abstaining in the United Nations will give the dividends to us or not. So all these things we are going to discuss, and we would like to know your point of view, your views on oil crisis. Professor Dr. R.K. Arya, please. Professor Arya, please unmute yourself.
Which is being taken up for discussion today.
Please,
very
yes, turn your mobile in a horizontal position, Arya, Professor Arya. Keep it like this. Yes, please.
The oil crisis which we are discussing today is a sudden outburst of what has happened on the world territory.
Professor Arya, please, you have to see that your face should be in the frame. It's going out, and try to turn the mobile in such a situation. No light should come from the back side. Otherwise,
is it okay now?
Now it is okay. Just keep it like this only. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. So what we have seen is that there is a sudden spike in oil prices because Russia has invaded Ukraine. And it has happened due to the political and geopolitical reasons. So this is a different thing apart. But what we are seeing now is that the spike in oil prices has to be faced particularly by the emerging economy.
Yes.
And India being vulnerable to the spike in prices of the oil. Last time the oil, after normalcy achieved after COVID, it was expected to be $100 per barrel. But now the spike which you are seeing due to the outburst of the war between the Ukraine and this Russia, and the spike is almost $30 per barrel. If it happens, it is already happened. The government is holding the prices with the oil companies because the government is trying to issue the bonds once again, which had happened in the UPA time. So once it happens, definitely some prices will be softened and there will be a respite to the public. But if it does not happen, most probably it cannot happen, because when the prices were so low, it had tried to extract the money from the public. That is, the excise duty has gone up to 34 rupees per liter, and it is still higher. Roughly 60% is the taxes in the oil pump prices. If you take 100 rupees as the pump prices, 40 rupees is the real price, and 60%, 60 rupees is the excise and VAT. So with this state of affairs, the government says that the COVID has taken a life from the economy, and therefore it is important that they need to collect the taxes so that the poor people can be given ration and the food subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, and so many things, health expenditure can be ramped up. It's clear, but you have seen last time that 97% of the people had seen their income being lower down, and roughly 84% of the people have suffered from poverty. 22 crore people have been pushed into poverty because of the COVID disruptions in the economy. The production had come to a halt, and at the same time the prices of the oil continued to be higher. The offices had to be shut down and people were working from home, and this has not given a strength to the economy ultimately. And again, the people, those who had been working from home, they cannot work for longer hours there in homes, so they have been coming back to the offices. In India, the work from home is not an easy solution. Something which do practically and physically sitting in the office cannot be substituted by sitting in the homes. So therefore, the demand for the fuel, 40% of the fuel is consumed by vehicles, and remaining others, diesel and all that, is spent there in the industries, as well as gensets and heavy engines that they are being operated with the diesel. So therefore, the energy requirement has to be kept as it is. It cannot, its demand cannot be lowered. So without that, the economy will be under stress, and then again the GDP will come down, and inflation will also be there. So we will be having a situation of stagflation. Stagflation is that the inflation is there, but the growth is stagnating. The growth, if the growth stagnates, it kills employment, it hits the poor very badly and all that. Now the only choice for the government is that it has to raise the prices, and it cannot cut down the excise duties at least, and the states can also not cut down the VAT, basically because their financial position is not very strong after COVID. The central government is yet to give roughly 35,000 crores to the states from the GST, even though some respite was there in terms of that is allowing them to take 0.5% of the fiscal resources from the RBI, but it was not enough because the people in every state are demanding that the health budget should go up, because the people had suffered the worst during COVID. So therefore, the health expenditure by all the states will have to be maintained. In under such situation, that if the inflation which present is 6.1%, and if it goes to roughly 6.7%, when there will be a spike in the oil prices, which are held temporarily, so then definitely the RBI is forced to raise the interest rate. Once the interest rate goes up, then definitely the liberal financing to the small sector will come under pressure, and definitely the employment will suffer. So the government is between the on the hard place and the rope. It is held between the hard place and the rope. What decision has to be taken? Either the fiscal deficit has to be cut down. That is because of the high oil prices. The government will have to cut down the excise duty, or should not raise the excise duty further in order to get the money, because the government has projected the budget at the level when the prices were $70 per barrel. It has already gone up by 50% in these 2 months. Otherwise, it has gone up to 80 to 90% when you compare it with the July period of the last year. So with this much of the spike, there is no other option except to depreciate the rupee. Rupee is already depreciating. The investors are going to the safe haven because the America is stabilizing and it is trying to raise the interest rate. So therefore, the markets in India are not considered very attractive. So these will go back. The investors, stock market will be jitty for most of the time. It will be choppy rather. So then the problem will be different. And in case the interest rate are risen, then the investors will be back to getting parking their money in the debt, government securities, or the debentures of the companies. These options are very, very limited. So far as the Russia is concerned, the Russia oil supply has been completely choked because Russia was supplying oil against the dollar, and because of the Western sanction imposed on Russia, the physical supply of the Russia is choked. It is supplying roughly 6% of the oil. After Saudi Arabia, the United States is at the top.
I think we have lost Professor Arya. Professor Arya, are you there? Professor Arya, are you there?
For the time being, yes.
Yes.
Is it audible?
No.
So
Please switch on
So
your
the
video.
government can feel
Please, yeah, please
that
go ahead.
if the Russia oil, if 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 the Russian oil cannot be supplied to the other countries, the European countries have started replacing the oil by the gas which is supplied through transient route from the Ukraine, or it is supplied through sea. This is still open, but the demand of the gas will be doubled almost, and we have seen the prices of the gas have gone up drastically in the Europe. So this is the situation with that country. Since we are also integrated with the global economy, whatever will be the fallout of the prices anywhere, the fallout of the prices will also be there. The government is procuring the edible oil in significant amount, roughly around 11% of the edible oil is taken from Russia. That in fact, unless the market is not diversified, the prices of the food commodities will also go up. And once the prices of the oil in another 4 or 5 days, because the government is trying to stabilize after the elections, so therefore they do not want to give the bad news to the people that see that till election were there, the prices were not raised, and suddenly when the elections are over and these have gone in the favor of BJP, so definitely the price spike will be there. So there will be no check and inflation will go through the roof. And once the inflation will go through the roof, the budget mathematics will be drastically disturbed, and then we can have a horrible situation in our own country. So long as the Russia cooling is concerned, it can be done, it can be taken care of through the Western lifting of sanctions. There is one option that the Iranian oil, which was stopped in 2015 due to the nuclear that is disagreement between the United States and Iran. So for a time being, when Russia is to be subjected to a discrimination, then definitely the United States can speak to Iran that for the time being that they can remove the sanction on Iran and the Iran supply continues. So, but it is a matter of time that if it happens, then definitely the oil supply from Iran will take care of the prices which will pent up here in India. But what we are seeing is that the United States is asking the investors to do the that is the fracking in the rocks of the sea, so that extra oil can be extracted from there. So once it happens, definitely the prices will also come down, because the United States will comfortably supply the shale gas to India also. Till now, we are taking a very limited amount from United States. Of course, we were taking from Russia 3%, but the larger supply was coming from the Gulf countries. So this option is not very easy. That is, increasing the supply from the sea there in United States through a hard technique called fracking in the rocks. That is the process which is applied. But the environmentalists are saying that when we are switching on to renewable sources of energy, what is the need of extracting the fossil fuel from the sea or the earth? Because its burning will again become the climate change, and the environmental temperature will go up. So they are very scared of it. So they will have to make the fine balance between what the environmentalists are saying. So therefore, practically, it is not possible that extracting of oil from the extra oil from United States by doing that is the technique which is used in the sea to get the oil out of that. So in India also, for the last 7 years, the ONGC's grant has been cut down. That is spending by 7,000 crore when they were extracting oil from the sedimentary rocks in India. Last time it was Mehsana in Gujarat, that is the ONGC and Oil India put together were trying to drill out the oil from there. But again, there are issues of the royalty and other things. Cairn India has been imposed a fine of rupees 40,000 crore because it could not pay the upstream supply from the sedimentary. The previous oils, that is from the Bombay High, which the ONGC used to get, now after 20 years, they are being dried up and new wells can be very costly. So therefore, the government is not thinking of spending the money on the exploration. If exploration cannot be done in India and the dependence of oil, roughly around 7% increase is already there from different countries. We are importing extra 7% every year to meet the demand of the growth needed for the economy. Till now, the economy is slowed down, the manufacturing sector is slowed down, the vehicular traffic has not come back to the normal in these days because of the COVID. So once it is there, when the economy starts booming, then definitely the import consumption has to be there, because it is not very easy to implement the wind energy from Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh, the coastal areas. So therefore, our dependence cannot be ignored. Even the government has committed that 50% of the fossil fuel will be removed and 50% renewable energy will be created by 2030. These are not the very easy option. These are easy to say, but practically our dependence on the oil will have to be there. And oil is being an intermediary, it affects the intermediary goods like the transportation by the truckers. And once the prices of the food, vegetable, wheat, bajra, and maize, those which travel from one state to other by trucks, definitely the prices will go up, food prices will go up, and inflation is bound to go up. But the time is that how long this Ukraine war will continue and the 6% supply will remain under shadow. It has to be seen that it can be done through, if the peaceful solution is there. To my mind, till Russia, in fact, because now it is getting the resistance from the Western arms supplies.
No, we have lost Professor Arya. Professor Arya.
1.5 months or 2 months till the Russian is coming. And also you see that how Russia will better off by aligning with China, then it will begin to exchange yuan, that is the currency for China with Russia, then there can be some respite if this exchange.
Professor Arya, sorry, Professor Arya, your network is now we can see you. Yes, please go ahead. Can you? Yes. Okay? Yeah, now it is better. Yes, please go ahead.
Should I stop?
No, yeah, please go ahead.
Should I stop?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. You can speak.
Hello.
Yeah.
When yuan in fact was trying to be given a reserve currency status, the yuan was pulled back by the China because they were not in a counter this dollar to maintain that. So they have
no, Professor Arya, I am sorry because your network is not proper. So what I suggest that we will take you in the second round if the network is not proper with you right now. You can join again with a proper network. So thank you very much, Professor Arya, for giving views. And what Professor Arya has essentially mentioned and mean is that because of the crisis among the Russia and Ukraine war crisis, because of that, oil is impacting throughout the world. And this crisis has evolved. And although the oil crude prices, which has gone up to $140 a barrel, has come down, but that is a temporary thing till the time the war is not going to be settled. We cannot conclude that now the oil prices are okay. But what he said is, one is that the oil bonds is one of the solution for this, which government can come out, which like UP has come out, although this government always criticized this particular practice of oil bond. So whether they will forget the things which they have said in past and they can come out for oil bonds, like at Manrega, when they were opposing Manrega, but then they implemented Manrega. So that is one solution. The second solution is might be the excise cut, but and the third is that they increase the prices. But in all the cases, according to Professor Arya, the crisis will deepen more, because he says if they will cut the excise, then definitely the revenue will be short, and once the revenue will be short, then the government, it will be difficult for government to run the it properly with the schemes which they have already introduced, the free rations and all those schemes. And if they will allow to increase the prices in the open market, then the problem will come that all the inflation will go. And once the inflation will grow, and if it will touch to about 6.7, then according to Professor Arya, then the RBI has no other option to increase the rates, interest rates. And once they will increase the interest rates, definitely the lower middle class or the middle class and others will have a very impact, a negative impact of this increase of interest. So according to Professor Arya, the condition is only thing is solution is that if we can explore more oil. But he says that now Bombay High oil is already dried up, and it requires lots of huge investment, which is not possible for the country. So they are looking for some alternate arrangements, although our Honorable Prime Minister promised in the Glasgow summit that 50% of the things will be removed, and natural power, those things will be used, alternate power will be used, energy will be used. But according to Professor Arya, it is not likely to be that practical what we were thinking. So according to him, the condition is not gloomy, good. It has to be watched very carefully, because ultimately the India is going to be impacted very badly if this crisis will not be diffused soon. Thank you very much, Professor Arya. We understand that your network is not proper. So I will request you to please go to a place where the network is proper, so that you can come again and give your further views and answer the questions which I am going to put. So thank you very much, Professor Arya, for giving your views. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Dr. Sanjay Shah. Dr. Sanjay Saha is the visiting faculty of Ramakrishna Mission Vivekanand Educational and Research Institute, Ranchi. Dr. Sanjay Saha graduated from Ramakrishna Residential College, MSc from Calcutta University, and PhD from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. One moment, please. He served as faculty and principal in colleges, management and technical institutes in India and international arena for 28 years. He worked in SOCHAM, published books, articles in national, international journals. He is at present academic consultant and trustee, member of Bright Kolkata, faculty of Ramakrishna Mission Vivekanand Educational and Research Institute, Ranchi, deemed to be university. Welcome, Professor Sanjay Saha, on our show. Professor Dr. Sanjay Saha, you have heard what Professor Arya has mentioned. Very clear in his views that this is a crisis, especially for India, because we have no other option. We are depending mainly on the oil which we are importing. Some disturbance is coming from your side, Dr. Saha.
Is it okay?
Now it is okay. No, again some disturbance is coming. You have switch on any other device there?
No.
Some disturbance. Okay. No, so what Professor, I will just mute you, then see. Yeah, it's a disturbance is there. So what Professor Arya says, that to come out, we have to take a very strong steps, although he has given alternates, but he says that any step taken can be harmful for the Indian economy. Now, we would like to know from your views on oil crisis. Dr. Sanjay Saha, please unmute.
Good morning to all of you. Today it is an International Mathematical Day, and also it is called Pi Day. We are talking a lot about the mathematical figures here itself with the topic oil crisis. Now, what is the meaning of oil crisis in India? Whether this crisis is having any effect on the elite class, whether it is having any effect or anybody knows who are not having proper food, what is oil crisis for them? It is the middle class who are actually getting affected, who is much more anxious about the oil crisis and prices of oil. So under this situation, let's see where we are standing. That means where India is standing. It is the third largest consumer after US and China in the global market. Prices increased sharply, which was very low 2 years back. It has been increased very sharply. Figures has already been given. And less availability of oil or even liquid petroleum gas and also coal in India. And people are not aware about the alternative sources of energy where we can very easily replace oil itself. And in addition, what we have seen, there are some artificial hindrance by the top leaders or maybe political parties or maybe by the ruling government. They are not actually giving proper information. Instead of oil, what are the other sources which we can tap? Then it is coming is a very easy source of finance both for the center and as well as for the state. Very recently we have seen, even after a lot of hue and cry, center was forced to reduce the price. But in many states we have seen that they have not decreased the price. Ultimately, this benefit has not percolated to the end consumer because very easily they are earning money. And then, last but not the least to me, rampant misuse of oil, especially by the political leaders and some bureaucrats and elite class. They are not concerned about this oil crisis, what is going on, because they are hardly affected. Now, under this situation, what we can come to know at this stage that it has got an artificial issue and it has also got some natural issue because natural we are not having enough amount of oil in our country and also it is artificial because artificially whether it is some other issues which we will be discussing that these oil prices are going up and this energy crisis is coming and affecting all of us. Now, let's come down. What are the factors which are actually influencing oil market today and creating this crisis? One was definitely, still it is existing, I should say, the COVID issues. Because of this COVID, supply decreased sharply because the people who are actually producing this oil, there's a short supply of worker, infrastructure, and raw materials. So as a result, supply decreased sharply because of this COVID issue. Then also we can also link the economics issue, that is supply and demand gap, where we have seen the supply was less and it is not increased the way it should be, but all of a sudden demand has been increased. So as a result, the gap is very high and price has been increased at a very fast pace. Then it is coming the legislative issues of the countries because there is a national legislative issue and international legislative issues. So these are actually interacting not in a favorable way. As a result, prices are increasing and crisis is evident. Then another factor which is also influencing the government interference. And in many situations, we have seen the country's government is not actually trying to mitigate the problem. Rather, they would like to see how much it can increase. Ultimately, they will be getting the benefit at the cost of the people of their country. Then it is coming what is going on today since last 19 days, the war between Russia and Ukraine. And ultimately, there is a lot of sanction which has been put by US and other countries on Russia and also on Iran. And we are not sure when these things will be over. Then another factor which it seems to us, which is also creating problems for all of us, is the corruption by the various agencies involved in these sectors. They are manipulating things for their own benefit and ultimately consumers are getting the blow. Then it is coming the theft, A lot of things are, especially the oil, these are basically stepped by the people, and generally they are under the patronage of some leaders. Then it is coming decade-old pipelines and other infrastructure, which are also creating pilferages of the oil. So this is also a big loss for the company, and also it is creating a shortage of supply. And then last but not the least, as already Professor Ari has mentioned, the environmental issues. So we should stop digging oil, or just trying to produce oil in such a way that environment is getting hampered. Because already we have seen what is going on in the name of global warming, and how temperature has been increased across the globe. Now, keeping all these things in our mind, then what are the solutions for the Indian? So we have to think about this one itself, because we can understand that this particular sector where laissez-faire market economy is not actually operating, which should be the case. So there is a practical problem, there is an economical problem, there is a political problem, and also there is a problem which is national and international level. So these are always creating some conflicting results for all of us, and we have to see what are the solutions. What it seems to me, that first we have to understand that there is a crisis for oil, prices are increasing, so middle class people are highly affected. So we have to see that what are the alternative sources. As we know, necessity is the mother of invention. So we have to come out with some solution how we can replace oil or use of oil with some other sources of energy. And we know there are some alternative sources of energy, maybe renewable as well as non-renewable. So we have to give impetus how this non-renewable energy can be used by the common people. And in this case, what we have seen, that we can think about electric motor, electric car, all these things, and also solar light. So in this way, this particular sector can get some impetus, so that prices can go down, or whatever crisis is there, it will not be affected by the common people. Now, in this case, also we must think about rationing of the oil supply partly. That means, like our food sector, the government should give some, some concessional price for the poor people. It is already started in Jharkhand. They have already started, but this thing is can be implemented across the country itself. So it will be true only for the middle class or poor people who are actually affected by oil prices, but they can also run parallelly the market economy, laissez-faire economy there itself. Then another is your solution. It seems to me that carbon misuse of oil by the political parties, leaders, and the elite class, because they are not bothered what is the oil price in the market itself, because they are hardly getting affected by this increase, whether it is 20 US dollar per barrel or whether it is 138 US dollar per barrel. So this particular aspect should be taken into consideration by the concerned party, whether at the central level or at the state level. Then it is another solution we should think, the willpower of the government and the leaders of some states. If they are willing, only then it will be. Otherwise, things will go as it is going on, and ultimately we will be suffering more and more. Then we can also think about quota on imports of oil, because ultimately it is creating huge pressure on our forex reserve. So ultimately we are getting affected. We can easily understand that we can imagine the third world can take place any day, as it is going on in the international market. We are seeing how things are getting complex between Russia, China, and US, and also the European countries. So these are not far away. If these things are not getting resolved, then third world will be there. Then where we will be, whether we should think about oil crisis the way it is today, or we should think about is a much more a complex mathematical situation. Normal simulation model cannot resolve this thing without the political leader willingness and the positive and optimistic attitude of the decision maker. Then it is coming that we have to come down and we have to think about that it is a problem. So self-awareness is another issue which it seems to me. People should aware. If you see that car industry 2 years back, they were crying like anything because they were not in a position to sell the car. And now see where the car manufacturing industry is standing today. How demand has been increased, even though prices of petroleum products have been increased sharply, they are not getting affected. Now, even if you are placing an order for a car, four-wheeler, there are a lot of cars where when they are going to supply you after 3-4 months, how you can correlate this particular demand of car industry, which are using petrol and or maybe diesel, and the prices of these two oils are increasing very sharply. We cannot correlate. Very difficult to understand the situation. It is not a very simple equation, y is equal to mx plus c. Then it is coming, the government incentive on tax. That means if you are using particular amount of oil, and if you are spending this amount of oil, the government should give some tax incentive. The way in various countries, the government is giving tax incentive, you are harvesting water, rainwater. So similarly, you can think about some tax incentive should be given when it is coming on the use of oil itself. And then what it seems to be the last point, a particular blueprint is required from the center or maybe in collaboration with the state government by the center for the transport sector, because this is not unique across the states. This is creating big problem. For example, the prices of oil are varying from one state to another state. The car registration is varying in some registration process. I'm not saying the car registration cost is varying from one state to another state. Then again, if you are thinking about the your other logistic issue there itself, what you will find is that this is not unique. So they should come out with a blueprint, because the transport sector is using maximum amount of oil. So if we can curb the demand of this sector in a very sophisticated way, then demand will decrease in the international market, and also we can save our forex reserves for some other development work. Now, the question is coming in the international market supply. Already, Saudi Arabia has promised to our government that they are going to increase their supply. It may be near about 4 lakhs barrels per day. So that is going to increase the supply, and we can expect a decrease in the price. Similarly, very recently, Russia has also promised to India. So there are some other hidden agendas there, which I am not going to discuss here itself, that they would like to give 30% discount on the price itself. Also, on the other hand, now this government, US government is going to maybe they will take out the sanction they have imposed on Iran. So all this, it seems to us, they are looking for some money, and ultimately they are going to increase the supply, or they can decrease the price. So my question to the common people, or to in this platform I'm raising, then why not positive willingness is coming? Why there is an hardship for this country, and ultimately they are increasing the supply or decreasing the price? That means there is a possibility they can increase supply very naturally. Positively, there is a scope that they can decrease the price. Then why these people are not, why these countries are not doing? They are always talking about sanction on this. But if they are not willing to decrease the price in a natural way, then artificially they can increase it, and ultimately some countries will get the blow, and we'll also get the blow, because we are the third largest country in terms of oil consumption in the world itself. So all these things, it seems to me that apart from natural things, artificially, what are the reasons are there for this oil crisis? That should be taken into consideration, and proper policy should be there across the globe. There is a lot of NATO is there, G20, they are all talking about a lot of issues, but they are not talking about why prices are going up. Because reasons we know, there are some political leaders and some very advanced countries, they are hoarding the oil within their country, and ultimately they are creating this supply bottleneck, and ultimately countries like us are also getting affected. In terms of your liquid petroleum gas, already the MENA countries, have already talking about that they would like to increase the supply, but transport cost will be very high. And we don't know what will happen in the near future. So either there should be a political will by the political leaders across the globe that they should take it properly and they should take proper action to mitigate the problem, or from the Indian point of view, we should think about there should be some alternative sources and which we should use and we should solve our problem. And again, this is the only solution, it seems to me, for the common people as far as India is concerned. Thank you. And
thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Saha, for giving your views. And Dr. Saha was very forthright to say that it is an artificial crisis. It's not a natural crisis, because according to him, one side, the Russia and Ukraine war, and the supply is down. The other side, Russia is offering to India that they are ready to reduce 30%. They are ready to give the discount of 30% on the cost price. And the other side is that Russia is ready to supply oil, ready to accept the money. Even the talks which is recently appeared in the media today, that even the Indian government is thinking for a ruble rupee exchange rate, so that they can pay in the Indian rupees, because many of the Indian businessmen's money is stuck due to the banking restrictions due to the sanction. But what he says, he has given lots of solution, but the main is, until unless we'll have some alternative energy source or energy to replace this thing, it is not going to be easy, because the OPEC or those countries who are exploring the oil and selling the oil, they are doing it sometimes intentionally. They are increasing the rates, they reduce the supply, and that affects the economy. And he says the middle class or the lower middle class is affected more. He even says that the leaders or the political parties have no effect, because they all are getting oil energy or almost free, because they are not paying for that. So according to him, it is a crisis situation, and the leaderships or the leaders, world leaders rather, he says, should take a situation in a consideration and try to take the action as early as possible, because no one knows when this war is going to stop, whether it will stop is now, or whether it will convert in a third world war. So according to Dr. Saha, one has to, and especially for India, he says that India, because the dependence on oil is too much in India, that's why Indian conditions, the economic conditions, are going to impact it very badly if the crude prices will increase further. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Sanjay Shah, for giving your views. Now I would like to go to my next panelist, and he is Mr. R. Kannan. Mr. R. Kannan is the corporate advisor and keynote speaker. He is ex-TCS, ICICI Bank and Hinduja Group. Mr. Kannan is an expert in finance and strategy with more than 35 years experience, and during his career as a management consultant and as a key member of corporate quarters in various corporates, including TCS and PwC as management consultant, Hinduja Group as VP and head of strategy, ICICI Infotech as EVP and head of strategy, ICICI Bank Group as EVP strategy. At present, he is providing corporate and economic advisory services focusing on central government, state governments, and corporates, including MSMEs. He is a mentor for startups under ADB program. He carried out assignments relating to corporate finance, fundraising, treasury management, strategy formulation and implementation, organization restructuring, corporate performance management, business development, and mergers and acquisitions. In his last role, he was heading the corporate performance monitoring and research function at the group level in Hinduja Group, dealing in aspects relating to planning, budgeting, performance monitoring, business development, M&A, and global economic and industry research. He is a member of expert committees in CII, ASSOCHAM, FICCI, Bombay Chambers of Commerce and Industry, and Indian Merchants Chamber on committee relating to foreign trade, private equity, industry, economic, banking, transportation, and environment. He was a member of National Task Force on Artificial Intelligence of CII. He had attended programs organized by World Bank, International Institute of Finance, Asian Development Bank, AIIB on international finance. He has spoken in seminars on union budget, Indian economy, banking and management at annual CFO and management conferences as a speaker in various forums. He was in the jury of selecting best CFOs in India. He was a member on the board of studies of SIES, a school of management, for 5 years, and member of academic advisory council in Birla Institute of Management Technology, Greater Noida, for 7 years. Now he is member of advisory council of Bhavan's K.M. Munshi Institute of Advanced Studies and Vexon School of Management, Hyderabad. He was the president of 75-year-old Bombay Tamil Sangam for 3 years. He is a visiting faculty in leading management institutes on finance, strategy, organization restructuring, and turnaround management. He has a personal interest in global and Indian economy and shared his ideas on economic development and economic crisis with the government stakeholders from across the world, and some of the recommendations on the crisis resolution and economic development were implemented by the government authorities across the world and Indian government. He has received several awards from different organizations. Welcome, Mr. Kannan, on our show. Mr. Kannan, as you are one of the person who recommend the crisis resolution, Mr. Kannan, are you there?
Yes,
Mr.
sir. Yes. I can.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Kannan,
you can hear me?
No, Mr. Kannan, first of all, change the situation, because the light is coming from the back side. No light should come from the back side. It should be dark. Better, but still you can turn more further. Further you turn. Okay, now it is better. So your network is low, but let's hope that it will work. Are you on the Wi-Fi or you are on Wi-Fi or your own network?
This is on my phone Wi-Fi.
Just see, because let's see. So, Mr. Kannan, without wasting time, I would like to know from you your views on the oil crisis, which is looming large right now in the country, rather I will say that globally. Mr. R. Kannan, please.
Yeah. So thank you, sir, for the opportunity. It is always to be pleasure to be with you in your webinars, and especially the introductions you give. We learn more about the situation than what we were actually knowing. And I'm happy to hear Dr. Saha also, where he has given a lot of ideas on how to resolve this crisis. If you ask me, oil crisis, we all know that it happened in 1970. Afterwards, we had 3 or 4 such crises so far. And it's all to do with economics, or we can call geopolitics. So geopolitics, I remember in the year 2020, one of the OPEC member countries, since I know some of the OPEC members, so they called to say that oil available at $20 per barrel. If someone is interested in India, they can buy. As you're all aware of the sanctions with Iran, India used to import a lot of oil from Iran at a very, very competitive rate. But from 2019 onwards, we are not able to import. So the situation came where oil was actually available for $20 per barrel. And as you're all aware, in the future market, it was even quoted at minus $15 for a few days. So if you see today, what is this crisis all about? Crisis is about, if you look at the leading oil producing country in the world, US is number 1 with almost 19 million barrels per day, followed by Saudi Arabia and Russia. In fact, last year, US became the net exporter of oil products in the world. Otherwise, they were always a net importer. So they became a net exporter of the oil products in the world. And if you see the oil situation, in each country, the cost of producing oil is different. It is cheapest in Saudi Arabia at $15 per barrel. And I think in US shale gas, if somebody is getting $40, then it becomes viable. So in between, we have countries which have oil at various costs, $15, $20, $25. So now what is this crisis all about? In fact, Russia is the largest supplier of oil and gas to Europe, European countries, especially a country like Germany. It mainly depends on both gas as well as for oil from Russia. So their dependence is very, very high. So European governments are still taking baby steps in terms of what to do in this situation. They cannot totally antagonize and say, Russia, you stop totally supplying. But the US said that you stop supplying. And you know, Russia is the second largest exporter of oil in the world. US may be the largest producer, but they consume their own for their own requirements. According to the stocks, there is an agency called EIA. It's a US government agency. According to the agency, the stocks of oil, US used to keep almost 900 million barrels as a reserve. Now it has come down to 414 million barrels. So the oil demand is increasing in the US. And like Professor Saha said, it is increasing even in India, even though prices are going up. We are really, it's price inelastic. Irrespective of the price at which oil is being sold in India, we as individuals, we don't mind spending money on vehicles we are buying, we are using. All that is happening. So it's all about geopolitics and demand supply situation. So actually it is possible in a normal course to balance the demand and supply. And we can make sure that oil is available throughout the year at $30 per barrel. That is possible. But we all know, I think if you go through a subject like strategy, there's something called buyer power. There's something called seller power. And in the seller power, these oil producing nations, OPEC, they all are joined together and formed an alliance whereby they decide how much oil to produce at what price to sell. So like Professor Saha said, they have decided that in this situation, they'll increase the production output by 400,000 barrels a day. That is the agreement now, so that the oil situation becomes a little more easy. And also, as he said, India has a strategic partnership with Russia in many areas, especially in defense. And especially in areas like oil and gas, we have a lot of relationship with the companies like Gazprom, Rosenfeld, and ONGC and its subsidiary OVL. We have investments in Russia. We have so we have such a long-term partnership. So it's no surprise that Russia is willing to look at giving a discount of 28 to 30% of price to India. If you ask me, if you have to be very selfish, you know that 85% of our requirements are still imported. We depend on oil from other countries. So India has its own problems, own economic issues. So from that perspective, if you look at, India should ideally, in fact, I think I spoke in one of the webinars where Shri Goel organized last year, where I was saying that the government should start looking at acquiring oil at a lower price to boost up the reserves. We have a reserves of about 5 million barrels a day, and this facility is being operated by Indian Oil Corporation, somewhere near Kochi, or 2-3 places we have. So it's a very, very minimum 5 million barrels. Well, if you go to US, they have 900 million barrels, which will last for 9 months. So if you have a reserve position which is very, very comfortable, then we will not be under pressure for price. So right now, since we are importing a lot, and every $10 increase in oil, I was told that it will increase the GDP, that deficit, government deficit by 0.4, 0.5% of the GDP. So these are all the requirements. So we have to, again, like Professor Saha was saying, US government is talking to Iran. Iran, they banned imports of oil from Iran for some time. I remember at its peak, India, we imported 13 million barrels a year from Iran at a very, very attractive rate and rupee terms, not in dollar terms. In fact, 2 or 3 banks in India, they mainly used to operate this Iran account. Similarly, we have a rupee account with Russia also. So that was banned, because of which we are not getting that oil cheap. So we have to go to markets. And also US went and banned Venezuela oil. Venezuela is another source. Now US is thinking about relaxing sanctions against Iran, against Venezuela. And also they are trying to see that whether they can get more reserves from their existing reserve. All that is being done, and they are speaking to people, countries like Saudi Arabia, where the oil demand can be met through increased supplies. So if you really come to this crisis is man-made, crisis is manageable. It is more of geopolitical in nature. And like what we see OPEC as a body, we are the 5 largest importers of oil in the world: India, China, US, South Korea, and Japan. So we 5 of us have to come together and say that we will start negotiating with OPEC as a body, not as individual countries. That's one way we can reduce the power of OPEC. We are the 5 largest importing country in the world. And obviously, and of course, in the latest initiative by government on FTA and all that, we went and established very good rapport with countries like UAE, Saudi Arabia, and especially countries from Middle East. They are looking at India as a long-term strategic partner. So it is possible for India to ensure long-term supplies at a rate which is reasonable, $35 to $40. We can even think of signing a contract for 3 years, 5 years at 35, 40. That is possible. And coming to crisis, like Professor Saha mentioned, one is this supply side. Other side is demand side. Of course, when we talk about we all should go for public transportation, actually we see a trend which is opposite to that, whereby everybody would like to own a vehicle. They want to go for a ride. So we find the trends which are opposite to each other, which is really increasing the demand for oil. And one good thing is that alternate sources of oil are emerging today. Even companies like Royal Dutch, Shell, etc. Now they started changing their strategy. They started focusing on green. They started focusing on producing alternative forms of energy, including hydrogen, etc., etc. So, but that is a long term. In the short term, if you have to manage this crisis, especially we are expecting this year, India will import $600 billion, whereas we will export only $400 billion, leaving a very big deficit of $200 billion. So we may have to convince our partners like US and others, saying that our Indian situation is quite different from others. So we should be allowed the flexibility to look at sources from where we can procure oil at a cheaper rate. I'm sure the diplomacy from India in the last 2 years, it's at its peak. And if we continue this trend, it would be possible to convince these people and move away from geopolitics and to look at our geoeconomics, our own economic interests, and see that we don't suffer too much. So these are my views, Sri Goel. Sri Goel, we are not able to hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Kannan, for giving your views, and Mr. Kannan has given a very clear views that it's a geopolitical issue, and he says that it's a man-made crisis. It can be removed. He has given one suggestion that all the 5 big importers of the oil should join together and try to negotiate with OPEC, try to pressurize the OPEC to decrease the rates, as well as to use the alternate methods of the transportation like electrical vehicles, etc. Because he says, although the prices are going up, oil prices are going up, but in India, we are buying more vehicles and thus putting more pressure on the oil import. And he says that because we are importing so much oil, we are depending on the oil import only, so it is impacting our economy. So according to him, it is only to be resolved if all the top 5 countries, although he says that US is taking lead by lifting the sanctions against Venezuela and other countries, but whether that will work, it's a long term or short term. But he says that it is required to take action as early as possible. Thank you, Mr. Kannan, for giving your views. Now I would like to go to Professor Arya. Professor Arya, are you there? Please switch on your video. Professor Arya, if you are there, please switch on your video. No, I think Professor Arya is not there. He can't hear me. So, Dr. Saha, I would like to come to you with the question. And now my first question is regarding the one moment, please. Dr. Saha, please unmute yourself. The question is about the oil bonds, as Professor Arya said. Professor, Arya, are you there? Professor Arya? No, you are not there. So, Professor Arya suggested about oil bond, and oil bonds, which earlier was bought by UPA, although it was criticized many times by the NDA, the present government. It was not good thing. But now, at that time, when the oil bonds came, the government tried to subsidize the oil companies, and by that way, they controlled the oil prices. They never allowed to go the price to be beyond limit. Approximately, I think the maximum price was about 70 rupees or whatnot, or whatsoever the price at that time. But today, without oil bond, it has crossed 100 rupees. They have reduced 5 rupees before the election or after the debacle of Himachal. So, but it has, again, because of the so much pressure, the oil companies are bleeding. Do you think the right way that the government should come out with a oil bond, with a long-term oil bonds, and give the relief to the oil company, as well in turn it will give the reliefs to the consumer, and the prices can be controlled? Do you think it is the way, one of the way, or you believe that the government should cut the excise duty and take the pressure directly impact on them? What do you say about this, Doctor?
Okay, Mr. Lal, I know before giving you the answer of your question, I am just giving you some information before all of you. Is this oil crisis is new to us today? Whether it was not happened in 1970s or 80s or 2020s, how we have managed that one? If we think about the normal economics theory here itself, you will not find any relation, because generally we have seen this is a necessity good, so it's an inelastic in nature. But now what is happening since last 2 years, it seems to me that it has become a different goods. As prices are increasing, demands are also increasing. We say that the price is increasing, oil crisis is there, but demand is not increasing. But it is increasing. Heavily it is increasing. So if there is a will, there is a way. If you are not willing to manage the situation honestly,
then whatever things you are planning today, whether it is bond or whatever it is, why you would like to subsidize the oil companies? For what reason? Why? How have you think about what is the operating cost of these particular companies? How fat salaries and other benefits this company employees are enjoying, and from whom? Who are paying? You are planning to float the share in the market. Common people will buy the share, and that money will go as a subsidy to the companies. For what? For their existence, they cannot stand on their own feet. If they cannot stand, they should close down. Now, again, think about when we are paying 100 rupees, 60 rupees or more, we are actually paying to the government. What is the return? How much it is coming back to us? Similarly, when the country is paying to the international body, whether it is OPEC country or any other European country, we can easily see the prices can be $20 to $30 US dollar per barrel. Then why extra? To whom we are paying this extra? For what? For their luxurious life, for their country's development at the cost of our middle class family? Whether we have born in India to make this Middle East people or maybe some European and American countries people to make them much more rich for their luxurious life? For what reason we have born? What type of market it is? Have we thought about? Can we classify the oil market today in terms of monopolistic market, monopoly market, oligopoly market, where it is standing? No logical answer, sir, you will find. As I have mentioned very clearly in my solution, so long bond is within the mindset of the political leaders, with the top bureaucrats, with the decision maker, no bond in the market can mitigate this problem. Why we are not giving a knowledge and awareness that you can cook by using solar energy? Why you are not coming out with a blueprint that this is the logistic solution as we are facing oil crisis? Why oil crisis? Oil crisis we should talk about. This is absolutely man-made artificial thing as is standing today. We are not worried when we are paying hectic amount for our arms and ammunition. We are having so much deals with the US, with the Russia and other countries for our arms and ammunition. Why we are not dealing properly so that we can have oil within our country and then at a very constant rate? Where is the Michael Porter's 5 forces model is actually standing today? There is no buyer's choice today. If we are really the third largest country who are consuming this oil, then why we are not having any power? Why you should be left at the mercy of these OPEC countries or maybe some other countries? What reason? So no proper answer, sir. As I have mentioned very clearly, there is immediately two solutions are only possible. One is your political will of the leaders, and second is proper awareness for alternative use of energy. Once you are going to ignore the demand of this oil, what will happen? If more supply and less demand, then automatically price will go down. Then this country will be forced to sell you more and more discount they will offer you because they can understand what they will use with this oil. It is normal theory, sir. If I am having substitute product, I will go for the substitute product if it is satisfying or if it is meeting my needs. So no bond, no other way. It is only political will of the leaders and bureaucrats, and also we should be aware about the alternate use of our consumption.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saab, for your very strong views of on the reply of the oil bond. Now my question goes to Mr. Kannan. Mr. Kannan, as Professor Saha mentioned about the no use of oil bond and the political will is required. My question to you is, when the price was as less as $20 recently, it was prevailing for many years or a few years, and but the prices in the market was quite high. It means the money which was collected at that time, either it should be used to subsidize now, or it should be they should have make a buffer, or they should have lessened the price at that time. What they were saying, we are increasing the price, we are keeping the price because we have to service the oil bonds, etc. But today the situation is changed. Today the situation is changed. Today the prices are going up. So what Professor Shah is saying, that is a man-made, and the political will is required. Otherwise, you cannot, whatsoever money you will raise from the market, again, it will go to the drain. What do you say about this, Mr. Khanna?
So the oil bonds as a concept, what we are hearing, actually the present government was saying that one of the main issues of last government was that they were issuing oil bonds, and these oil companies, they were not able to realize the economic price which they should have charged to the customer. In fact, that is what a strong argument coming from the present government on oil bonds issued by the earlier government. In fact, they are criticizing that. In fact, if you see, you are saying that we were selling at a very high price when it went to $20 per barrel also. Remember, money is fungible. If this year, the budget, the government is very comfortable about finances in India, thanks to the money they collected through this excise duty from oil. That has really helped the government to make the finances very, very comfortable for the government. So that is what has happened. So that lessened the pressure on the government also. So if you ask whether that money is still available, I don't think so. Well, the government had plans for big borrowing from the market. But when they were able to collect a lot of money from these oil cess and oil excise duty, so that really went to help government in terms of meeting their funding needs. So their actual borrowing from the market compared to what they planned earlier was much lower this fiscal ending March. So that is how government is very, very comfortable in finance. So if you ask whether that money which at $20 they charged, that money is available to government, I would say no. Well, that was substituted for the loan which they would avail from the market. That is what it is. And coming to today's situation, like you were saying, see, there were a lot of comparisons which were being made of the retail price of the petrol. When oil is being sold at $20, we are time $70, $80. Actually, the price has gone up. So the main element which has gone up was mainly in excise duty and cess, that part of it. So one of the things which government can do is that they need not increase the cess, they need not increase the excise duty. But like last year, they reduced the requirement for borrowing from the market. So this year, they can go and borrow. Only issue today is that the interest rates in the economy have gone up like anything. In fact, in the last 2 months, the interest rates across the spectrum, across the instruments, we see that interest rates are going up. Now, I don't know the RBI policy which is coming. Last time itself, they expected that they would increase the interest rates. This time, I think they'll be forced to increase, because the expectation is that US Fed this year will increase interest rates 6 times, and the interest rates in US will go up by 125 basis points. So if US is going to do that, India cannot sit idle and say that we'll keep our interest low. If you are going to keep the interest at the same level, whatever money we have from foreign portfolio investor, all that will go out of India. So there is a need for India to increase the interest rates now. So if you ask one of the ways to get out of this, of course, oil bond, the government itself said that that was a wrong decision by the earlier government. So I don't think this government is going to support the concept of oil bond. So that is out of question. Second is that further raising excise duty, further raising cess, I don't think it is going to help. So ideally, whatever future requirements are there, what government should do, they should try to manage the system as it is today. Already the oil rates after going up to $139, it has come down to 109. And if my expectation is that within 2-3 weeks, it should come down to $60 to $70. So it will come down to that level. So we should not have any knee-jerk reaction, and the pricing has to be according to the economics of production.
Okay.
So that is what companies have to do.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Kannan, for giving your views. Now, my question goes to Dr. Shah. Dr. Shah, why not government come out with one or two solution? One more solution is all the new taxis which are coming either used by Uber, Ola, or anyone should be electric vehicles. Number one. Number two, all government, semi-government vehicles which they are procuring should be electrical vehicles. So at least the consumption of all those oils, all these taxis or the vehicles used by the government, if they will be using electrical things, it will definitely lessen the burden on our oil import. What do you say about this?
See, sir, what you are suggesting, actually, this issue has already been started 1 year back. If you go by the website of Uber, they have talked about electrical scooter. An electrical scooter or two-wheeler, it is already existing in our market. But you know, the funniest thing is that the cost is starting from 45, 50,000 to maybe 150,000. I don't know why this is so costly. And another maintenance cost, they are saying it is very cheap. But if you go, when you are purchasing the battery, which are generally used for this particular two-wheeler, the cost of this battery is near about 15,000 to 20,000. Why? Why this is so costly? What are the action government has taken? And government is saying, especially the central government, they are giving subsidy almost 15,000 to 20,000 for each electrical scooter. Then who is getting this subsidy? Why the end consumer is not actually enjoying the subsidy? So almost you will find that the cost of your scooters are almost same, whether it is run by petrol or by electric, but maintenance cost is becoming very high. This is not accepted.
Okay.
So on the other hand, as you are saying, the Uber taxi or electrical, these are possible. It is very easily, it can be implemented, but whether government are willing, why governments are not willing? Now, when we are using electricity in our home, you just see how much we are using. If you sum the whole consumption of the Indians, but they would like to patronage some electrical supply company, and that is why they are not willing. They are charging anything, whether 8 rupees to 10 rupees or 12 rupees per unit. But this can be replaced with solar energy or something like that. So as I told you, willpower of the
politician. Okay, thank you, Dr. Shah. My last thing to Mr. One moment, please, Doctor. Yeah, Mr. Kannan. Yeah. One suggestion, only one suggestion in 30 seconds, which you'd like to give to the government. What will be your suggestion on this oil crisis? 30 seconds.
I think crisis. Suggestion is to increase diplomatic efforts.
Okay.
To get oil cheap.
Okay, thank you very much. So, viewers, you have seen the experts' comments and the views about the oil crisis. And the oil crisis is not a thing which is in India, it's a global crisis. Yes, it is because right now this crisis is because of the Ukraine war. But earlier also the prices was going up because the monopoly of OPEC, and they wanted to put pressure to all the importers. So very good suggestions have been given by our panelists. But are we willing to accept those? Is the government is going to implement any of that? That we have to see, because after all, there are lots of diplomacy. They have to consider many things because it's a war situation and nobody knows what is going to happen tomorrow. But as a civil society, we will control our requirement as our panelists suggested, we use the alternate arrangements, alternate energy, then at least we can control our own budgets. Otherwise, it can depend if although good news is that today the rate has come down up to $110 per barrel, but we don't know that's tomorrow's situation. If the war depends, it may go up. If not, then it can come up. So we hope that the war should end as early as possible. So at least we can come out from oil crisis. So thank you very much for giving the views to all the panelists. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, as well as shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor to bring to you every day new topic in our media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Tomorrow our topic is PhD not mandatory for teaching. As you might be knowing that the government has come out, the UGC has come out with things that now PhDs are not required for central universities. So it means anyone who is a postgraduate or who has worked in any company can be appointed as a professor in a university or a college. So tomorrow we are going to discuss this very, very important, relevant point, which is connected with the education, future education of the country. PhD not mandatory for teaching. And our panelists are Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak, international corporate trainer, public speaker, blogger and columnist, former professor and head of the management studies, IIT Dhanbad. Professor Dr. Alok Prakash Mittal, former member secretary, AICTE, director, NSUT West Campus, New Delhi. Dr. Ruxana Hassan, renowned psychologist, trainer, coach, motivational speaker, special educator for early childhood education in development and development, Bangalore. And Dr. C.K. Manjunath, student welfare officer, Shri Madhva Raja Institute of Technology and Management, Udupi. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. R.K. Arya. Thank you very much, Dr. Sanjay Shah. And thank you very much, Mr. R. Kannan, for giving your views. And I'm hopeful that your views are quite enlightening to our viewers. And our viewers, thank you very much for listening and hoping that you will be doing something at least for saving the energy. So at least till the time this crisis is not over. Thank you very much. Thank you all.